Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our Douglas County Homeless Initiative work group and executive meeting. It's September 8th. I see a lot of our phenomenal citizens here with us today, and we really want to thank you again for joining us and for your active participation. The Douglas County Homeless Initiative has had a lot of success recently. And we're thrilled to share that and talk a little bit more about some of the progress that has been made, certainly with our HEART team, our Homeless Engagement Assistance Resource Team. Again, the purpose of the Douglas County Homeless Initiative is to reduce homelessness to zero, to functional zero. We don't want to add to our point in time. We want to reduce that as much as we possibly can, so that next year that 78 number is much lower, if not eradicated. And already we've heard about I want to say, 5 to 6 encampments that have already been cleared out, and a number of panhandling issues that have been addressed by our HEART team. So a lot of good progress there. I want to share that some of the progress we've made has been with our winter shelter network and the ongoing partnership we've had in the faith-based community. The citizens have been very active about encouraging this group in Douglas County to continue to work with the faith-based community to ensure that those that are caring for people in crisis continue to be cared for in that way. The nice thing about the Winter Shelter Network is that it has been supported by the citizens of this community for over 10 years and has provided basic needs, food and shelter for women and children in crisis, like I said, for about a decade. Part of what we've talked about is just dropping that winter and calling it the Shelter Network. We know that faith partnership is supported by the community, but I want to be really clear for everybody that's joining us here today. We did hear that there was a conversation about affordable housing and a 200-unit application somewhere. And want to be clear, this is not the town of Castle Rock. This is Douglas County. We're not involved with that, nor does that have anything to do with the Douglas County Homeless Initiative. So if you're here to talk about an affordable housing application, that is not this today. But we do welcome public comment and hope you will continue to join us through the rest of our meeting. Let me turn it over to the wonderful Jen Eby to kick us off with our first speaker.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Yeah, we have quite a lineup for you this morning to talk about different funding sources that are available to be able to address homelessness. That we are, just going to get an overview of that. We are starting to look at those different fund sources, and we'll talk more about that as well. So we will start off with Dr. Jamie Rife from Metro Denver Homeless Initiative to give us an overview of the fund sources that are available through their organization.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jamie. I think I was having some issues with sound. Are we ready to go, Rand and Luke?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. This is Jamie Rife with the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative. Here to talk to you about historic funding opportunities. Super excited to share the information with you and everything that we have in front of us to really help be able to stand up and support local efforts like yours with
Dr. Rife, is it possible you can speak a little louder?
I will yell. Jennifer, how's that? Is that better? Or no? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, just excited to share the opportunities with all of you today on how we can help support with federal, state funding around some of the initiatives in Douglas County. So if you could go to the next slide, please. I'm going to talk a little bit about the continuum of care funding that we have available. And then I'm going to hand it over to Zach to actually talk about some historic funding opportunities with the state funding. So a couple of things that are happening right now is we have our annual continuum of care competition funding happening. So this is funding that comes directly to our region each year that we kind of collect applications for, and then there is a committee at MDHI that reviews applications, ranks them, and then sends them to HUD. Every year it brings in about $30 million for homelessness response. I will say there are two tiers with this funding. The first one is kind of the renewal tiers, and that tends to take up most of the $30 million in funding. Where there is opportunity is for what are called bonus dollars. So our COC also competes nationally to be able to bring into the region bonus dollars for new projects, like some of the things you may be considering in Douglas County. And that is what is called Tier 2 funding. So that bonus new funding. I will say this year, with everything happening, HUD really gave us a really shortened timeline on this. So applications are due the 30th. And I know that we've been able to, work with Douglas County on some of that funding opportunity, and I'm excited to see that application. The next piece that is absolutely new to everyone in the country is what's called an unsheltered notice of funding opportunity. So this is the very first time in a long time that there has been new funding to the continuums of care for specifically homelessness response. And so what this really does is allow the communities and the different parts of the region to apply for things that maybe they need support for to address unsheltered homelessness. So that visible homelessness is people staying outdoors or in places not meant for human habitation. So what will happen is, again, this is a competitive process nationally. We will, after, we're in the process right now of starting to collect those applications. And then similar to the annual COC competition, NOFA, they will also be ranked and reviewed by a community-wide committee of the NOFA. And what that allows us to do is compete for up to $13 million over 3 years as a region. We are competing nationally, and with that, I think some of the challenges we're facing is that there are communities across the country that have a much larger unsheltered population based on the annual point in time, which is done, as we know, in January, when most people, for the weather conditions, may tend to move indoors. But we are competing nationally against others that have the ability to express more need and are gaining points based on their unsheltered population. It is, again, a really exciting opportunity. And on the MDHI website, there's information about both of these. And I know we've been in communication and talked with Douglas County quite a bit about this, but I would encourage.
Is there any way that you could put this down? They're working on it. We apologize. We're on with IT and our support line right now trying to fix the issue. We apologize. Thank you.
Can't hear much out here. She's gonna have to start over.
Okay.
Keep going, Dr. Rife, please.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Yeah, so I just want to encourage, if there are questions, because this is, a rather complicated process, to visit our website or reach out to us. Happy to provide any sort of information possible to Douglas County to help them kind of navigate that. And so with that, I'd like to toss it over to Zach and maybe hope that his audio is better about the state funding opportunities.
August 30th or September.
Dr. Rife. Hi, can everyone hear me all right?
Well, we can hear you better, Zach. If you can talk as loudly as you possibly can. Our audio is.
Or have someone
not
recap
that
what
good.
she's saying.
All right, no problem. I will get loud. So if you can jump to the next slide.
I knew that we had done that.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Zach Schaffner. I'm the Supportive Housing Services Manager. I'm a member of the Office of Homeless Initiatives within the Department of Local Affairs, Division of Housing. Really appreciate the invitation to be here this morning and talk a little bit about the new resources that are becoming available through the 2022 legislative session. And so one of the major bills I want to talk about is 1304. So that's $138 million available through American Rescue Plan Act dollars going to the state. That is really focused on housing development. And I'll share a link in the chat in just a second here. We have just released our funding guidelines for 1377. And so really that's available for public comment. So if there's any aspects of how the parameters for 1377 that you don't like, let us know. We want to make sure that 1377, giving the scale and scope of that funding, that it works for your community. So if you have any comments around match requirements or things like that, we wanna hear that. So I'll post that link in just a second here. Another funding type that I did want to talk about was Senate Bill 22-159. That's a revolving loan fund for investments in affordable housing, $150 million. And now this is designed, knowing that the ARPA funds are one time. With this revolving loan fund, we have the opportunity to make loans and then have them be paid back. So hopefully we're able to spread the impact of this historic funding using that revolving loan fund. You could jump to the next slide for me. Okay, so 1377. This is another major component of funding opportunities that are going to be available to nonprofits and municipal governments across the state. And so this is $105 million. It's available again through the American Rescue Plan Act. And the intention here is to provide funding for supportive services and direct assistance, capacity building, as well as some of that housing development. So really, 1377 is incredibly flexible in what the eligible costs are included. So whether that's, we have one specific allocation amount that's around data infrastructure. There's a cap on 5 million.
Zach, if you can hear me, I'm going to have
Yep.
you pause for a moment, just
Okay.
for everybody. Are you guys able to hear it now? Is that a lot better? Is that better? How are we doing on getting it out to the hearing room?
We're working on that. We have a tech on it right now.
All right, just want to make sure you guys can hear. Thanks, Zach.
No worries. So I'll go ahead and share that draft policies and procedures document in the chat right now. This is just going to be a great opportunity, and I really appreciate the invitation to speak this morning. But if you have any input on 1377 or 1304, this document provides an opportunity to do that. So 1377, very flexible, $105 million. That's American Rescue Fund Act, so those funds need to be committed by the end of 2024 and spent, I believe, by the end of that federal fiscal year. But don't hold me to it. So we've got a pretty tight timeline where we need to get this money out the door and spent. And right, we at the Division of Housing, we're a funder. We provide technical assistance, but ultimately we rely on local communities to get these funds out the door and do the incredible work and build on some of the things that I know you mentioned earlier in the call. So that's exactly the sort of thing we want to bolster. We want to empower local communities to do what we know is effective and what we've seen work in other communities that have had success in reducing the number of individuals and families experiencing homelessness. So this 1377 funding is going to be a major asset for those communities across the state in working to make homelessness rare and brief and ensure that no one gets left behind. If you could jump to the next slide. This is another bill, Senate Bill 1378. This is funding for the Denver Metro Navigation Campus Grant. So it's $50 million to provide a grant for Denver metro communities have the opportunity to create a navigation campus. We've had a lot of conversations about what does it mean to have a campus? Can that have more than one location? But ultimately, the intention is that this is a place, we want to create a place in the Denver metro area where individuals can go for that resource navigation, where they can go to get some of that assistance. We can do some of that on-site medical and dental care, shelter, transitional housing type model. I do not have a ton more information on 1378 just yet. I think we're in the process of putting together what that procurement process will look like for interested municipalities. I think we've got some interest in a couple of communities who are interested in partnering together to sort of put together a collaborative application for those funding. But it's an opportunity to really transform a campus, looking at models like the Fort Lyons Supportive Residential Community down in Bent County. Next slide, please. All right, and speaking of the Fort Lyons supportive residential community, there's another bill that passed which is intended to repurpose the Ridgeview campus. For folks who aren't aware, that is a campus that was formerly owned and operated by the Colorado Department of Human Services Division of Youth Services. That campus was being used for young adults or youth who were involved in the youth correctional facility or youth services system. It has the number of individuals being served through that building has dropped consistently over the years. It really is a campus, and so this funding opportunity is really designed for the repurposing of that campus, similar to the Fort Lyons supportive residential community, focusing on individuals with substance use or behavioral health needs. And again, just wanted to mention those two so that you can consider of, where you need to be making investments, knowing that you will have the Ridgeview campus and that Denver Metro campus. The 1377 and the 1304 funding opportunities, I think, are probably the most relevant as you think about, okay, the state's got resources, we've got ideas, let's put them together and start formulating, because again, we've got a tight timeline to get this funding out the door. So the more work that you can provide upfront in that planning exercise, if this is what we're going to prioritize, these are the sites we're interested in for acquisition and rehab and development. These are the services on street outreach, rapid rehousing, landlord navigation, the better. These are just two little smaller programs I just wanted to mention. One is around a flex program for our state housing vouchers, where individuals have the opportunity in a rental assistance program. You pay 30% of your income towards rent. As your income increases, 30% of your income you're paying towards rent. It changes. This sort of says that as your income increases, that's going to go into a equity account that you'll have access to long term. The other one is this homeless contribution income tax credit. This is a very exciting program for small nonprofits and organizations working in the field of housing and homelessness who may have been involved in this space, but oftentimes we know like that funding is a big barrier. And so this gives private individuals and citizens the opportunity to provide that, to contribute to nonprofits supporting housing and homeless services. So if you're a nonprofit who's been working in this space, it's a chance to do that. So really just want to say this is a historic funding opportunity. In my career, I never anticipated we would have this level of resources. When we got the marijuana tax cash fund passed a few years ago, we've done things like the vendor fee, the unclaimed assets fund. We thought those were going to be the largest source of funding we would have to address housing and homelessness in Colorado. The American Rescue Plan Act funds that we have has really provided this once in a generation opportunity. We're going to have this money very shortly. It's going to be available to communities. We're going to keep you updated. That document I shared in the chat is your best chance to provide input right away on the RFPs that are going to be coming out later this fall and early in 2023. So just wanted to make sure this was on your radar. We have some incredible opportunities and we can't get any of this done without your support. And I'll stop there.
Okay, I believe next up we have Heather Powers with Veterans Affairs.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Heather Powers, and I am with the Rocky Mountain Regional Medical Center. I work in the homeless programs. I'm actually the coordinator for our HUD-VASH program in the Denver metro area, and that's a program I'll overview really quickly in just a second, but I'm here to talk about all of our homeless programs and access to our homeless programs. So when we're talking about VA homeless programs, the first step is really around verifying eligibility. And so the way that a veteran is able to access homeless programs is that first step of eligibility verification. Next slide. These are some ways that a veteran can be verified that they are eligible for VA healthcare or other services related to homeless programs within the VA. A person can receive their DD-214. They can also call the number, and actually the number at the bottom of the slide is one of the quickest ways to be enrolled in VA services once a person's eligibility is determined. Next slide. One of the first programs I'm going to talk about is our Community Resource and Referral Center. Our Community Resource and Referral Center is located in Denver proper, and it's located in the community in an effort to be close to veterans where they receive services. We operate a myriad of services out of our Community Resource and Referral Center. We do receive walk-ins every day. We open at 6:30. We offer showers to veterans. We offer resources within the building, and that's also where a lot of our other homeless programs and services operate out of. So for veterans, it really is a one-stop operation where folks can come in, receive same-day services, receive screenings, and then be, in an effort, moved through our system to be able to receive housing and other programs within healthcare for homeless veterans. We also have a walk-in clinic at the Rocky Mountain Regional Medical Center, and that's located at 1700 North Wheeling Street, so the Greater Medical Center in Aurora. Those walk-in hours are Monday, Tuesday, and I believe Thursday right now due to staffing from 8 to 1. So for all of you to know, veterans are able to access and be screened for services at either location every day throughout the week, and then can also call the numbers on those slides to be able to access a social worker or somebody right away if in fact it's outside of hours or need services. The next program is HUD-VASH, and HUD is a collaboration HUD-VASH is a collaboration between HUD and VA. HUD provides a housing subsidy, and the VA provides intensive case management services. A veteran must be eligible for VA healthcare, and then we have some additional requirements because it is a permanent supported housing program. We really want to be able to serve veterans who are in need of that type of intensive service. So we have some additional screening criteria that we go through to make sure that we're entering folks into our program that are eligible for that service and really need that service. Next slide. We also have our grant and per diem programs. So these are similar to what the folks in the community would understand to be transitional housing. So we contract with facilities within the community to be able to provide transitional housing, and in part of that contract, those sites provide intensive case management. The hope with our grant and per diem sites is actually it's a touchstone versus permanent supported housing or permanent supported case management, where grant and per diem is really designed for folks to be able to go to that program, receive case management services, receive other additional treatment services, and then hopefully be able to live independently after utilizing that service. Next slide. This is just a really amazing program that we have inside of all of our programs. It's called HPACT, which is our Homeless Patient Care Aligned Team. HPACT provides nursing services, care coordination, and now we have a prescriber, and we also have a medical provider who can provide same-day screenings. HPACT is available out of our CRRC, and folks can be screened that day. And then Taryn, who's listed at the bottom of the slide, is our social work coordinator for the HPACT program. She works really hard to have folks who are generally not able to live or be successful in some of our other housing programs. And because of level of care needs, Taryn works really closely with those folks to be able to assist them in getting into assisted living type care facilities or skilled nursing type care facilities. So we do have an opportunity for folks who need that higher level of care to have that one-on-one engagement with a team to be able to help them move into that living situation. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit about supportive services for veteran families. Supportive services for veteran families is actually VA funded grant money, but it's provided to community providers to distribute. So I like to think of SSVF as an opportunity for folks to get short-term assistance or touch point assistance when folks might not necessarily be eligible or even need the type of intensive services that we offer out of the medical center. So on this slide are folks that are our partners in the community. We work closely with Volunteers of America and with Rocky Mountain Human Services, and their contact information is here. I will say for HUD-VASH, we also work very closely with both of these programs for deposit assistance and then short-term rental assistance if someone is in arrears. So we work really closely with our SSVF partners on both of those items for our folks who are moving into permanent supported housing. Next slide. And I believe I am done. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you all for your presentations. We very much appreciate hearing about all of the different fund sources that are available for this. And absolutely appreciate your partnership and willingness to work with us as we work through accessing these different things for our community. So thank you very much. I am going to pass this on now to Rand Clark, who is going to give an update on the grant fund applications we have been looking at applying for so far.
So thank you. What I think the most important thing is, as we presented that this morning, is for you all to hear that there is multiple opportunities to fund the work of this initiative. And we want you all to know as staff and as our partners and community members that as staff, we are aware of these. We are meeting regularly, monthly with Dr. Reif, who you heard from DCHI, with representatives from the state, with our local community to identify those funding sources that that can be used to support the efforts of this initiative and apply where appropriate to try and find funding so that we can utilize those resources to fund the work that we're doing here in Douglas County. So to date, we have already submitted applications for the annual renewal NOFA. That was the very first one that Dr. Reif mentioned. Those were due a couple weeks ago in our board approved application. We are currently working and requesting a permission to apply for the special NOFA for unsheltered. That's the one up next. So as the RFPs, as the applications are being released, we're following them. We are tracking them. We are meeting with our leadership to say what supports the work of this initiative and what's appropriate to apply for. And just wanted you all to be aware that we are actively spending lots of time following that long list of grants, and we wanted you to be aware of that this morning. So with that, Commissioner from the Executive Committee, take any questions, but we just wanted information dumped so that everybody understands how much is available right now. So
Well, I think that's really helpful. I know from our perspective in Douglas County, this is a county that is out of debt as of this year. We've got a balanced budget. Our sales tax revenue is up near 30%. And, we issued the largest tax cut in the history of Douglas County last year by that 1.25 mill levy reduction. So I know we have no intent to raise taxes or have this funded in any other way. It sounds like a lot of great potential grant funding. I know the American Rescue Plan Act is another source of federal funding for this program. So good to know that we're not dipping into people's pockets for this program.
Hey, any questions on any of that from the Executive Committee? Okay. So we're going to move on to a sign committee update. We had a lot of discussion at our August meeting about a proposed sign that we were looking at. Could you go to the next slide, please, Luke? Just wanted to kind of reiterate what our objectives are for this sign. We are looking to discourage panhandling activity and really redirect our citizens' generosity. We know that people have very much a heart and want to be helpful. So I will be using this. Very much a heart and want to be helpful. Okay, can you hear me now? No. Now? Okay. Maybe he has to flip a switch back there. I'll talk loud. So we have multiple objectives for this sign. As I said, and one other thing, thank you, that we want to make sure that we're doing with these signs is make sure that you all have a way to connect to our heart group. And that's our homeless navigators that are out with law enforcement, and making those connections with those who are unsheltered in our community and experiencing homelessness. We want to obviously make sure that they're safe, but also that they have access to resources as well. So that's another way to be able to do that. Could you go to the next one, Luke? So at the last meeting, we heard that you asked us to keep this sign simple. We heard that feedback, and we've made some changes here. So now we are moving to a handouts don't help. So that we can kind of reiterate that fact that we want to discourage panhandling. We are saying to give safely through DouglasHasHeart.org. So we will have one central website that has information on that website about homeless resources, that sort of thing, but also has a direct button on there that will connect, that will say, click here to donate. It will go to the community, Douglas County Community Foundation, and they will take those funds in and provide them all directly, no administration costs here, but all provided directly to the organizations that provide services for the unsheltered in our community. So that would be a way to redirect your generosity. And then we have the connection to the heart team then at the bottom of the sign and the phone number associated with that. So wanted to let you all know that we have worked with our different municipalities, talked with them, and I believe we are at a final sign design here. So our next steps, Luke, could you move to the next slide, please? Our next steps for this really will be to finalize the locations. We did have some comments about dealing with different municipality sign codes. We have checked with all the municipalities, and our understanding is that these signs, because they're considered governmental, will be exempt from the sign code. So we don't need to go through a process of having approval through the sign code, municipality sign code. So we are moving on to finalizing where those locations, sign locations will be, working with our municipality partners to be able to identify that. We are also working through getting regional permission through CDOT and RTD to put signs in at their facilities and in their right of way. So that portion is going to take us probably a little bit more time, but we will have locations for those signs coming up that are controlled by our municipalities. And in addition to that, we will have a communication strategy that will be done with these signs. They are not meant to be to communicate this message on their own. We will have a full communication strategy that will go along with that. And so you'll see that in social media, you'll see that on websites. We have all of our different municipality public information communication specialists helping us with that. So any questions on that?
Good morning. can you hear me? Councilmember Harmon with the city of Lone Tree. And I just wanted to take a quick moment to just say thank you to everyone in the room that has shown up today. One thing I know about this county is everyone in this room is here because we all care and we care for the same reasons. Unfortunately, our mayor Malay this morning is out of town on business, so she wasn't able to make it. However, we were able to contact each other by phone this morning. I wanted to share, Lone Tree does still have some concerns regarding the sign and are looking into having our communication staff dive into maybe possibly a more effective message. When I was sworn into office this May, I am sworn into office not only as a council member, but as a mother of 2 small children and a business owner. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the first people that in my family that are going to notice these signs are my 2 little girls sitting in the back seat. And I want to make sure that the sign is giving the best message. I know in cars across the county that we're going to be opening up conversations that parents may or may not be ready for. And I want to ensure that I have a sign that I can stand behind. The other piece is I know when patrons to my business are walking into my doors, I want to be able to confidently explain the message and the story behind our signs. And I think that we are slightly missing the message here. When I reflect back on issues I've had at my own salon, a simple issue such as we are trying to encourage kids not to join in my salon that I own. And if I put a sign on the front desk that said, "Don't bring your kids," I know it would be perceived as negatively by patrons of my business. However, if I change the messaging and write "Leave the littles" and tell the story about why I'm asking you to not bring your kids, and the reason is because I want you to come and enjoy your experience. I know I recognize these are 2 completely different issues, but I just think the messaging is really, really important. And I want it to be something that I can stand behind for many years to come. Lastly, I do still think that as a business owner and residents, people are going to want to give something. So can we come up with something that we can hand out, whether it's in a car or it's a business owner that's shown up to business that has come across an encampment that is giving the resources from this website, or something that can be handed out to give access to those in need. So thank you so much. I appreciate the collaboration and partnership. So.
Let me respond to that. So Marissa, thank you so much for being here. We always appreciate your leadership and the involvement of the city of Lone Tree, and Commander Beals is here as well. So thank you both. We greatly appreciate Lone Tree. I know you've been dealing with this issue for some time. I have had the opportunity to engage with Mayor Malay a couple of times on this issue. So I'm hoping that this isn't antiquated information. I know that we did over 6 months of the sign subcommittee reached sort of a final determination last month. And then as a result of Mayor Malay's input, this is her language. So that very top line is what she had suggested. So I hope we're still talking about the same. This is a modification from the delay we did last month for City of Lone Tree. So I know we've been in conversation a bit, and the mayor indicated to me that she was supportive of this language and it was her idea. So I hope, is there more?
We're getting hung up on, so.
Okay, that was what she specifically suggested to us. So we changed that for her and waited a month to do that. So maybe we can follow up with you guys afterward. But what I will say is that we don't want to probably delay another month. And if Lone Tree needs to do its own thing and maybe we part ways on this issue, we can do that. We did have an opportunity to connect with all of the other mayors throughout the county and uniform support for this particular signage. So maybe offline, we can talk a little bit more. I know she's busy right now, so please give her our best. Thanks. What other questions or comments are there out there?
Good morning. Good morning, Tim Dietz, Castle Rock Council. I actually particularly like the way this looks now and cleaned up. It's a little direct and it gives you some places of contact. So I think that the hard work that's been done on this has to be a little more, we have to have some direct talk. That's just my comment. Thank you.
Good morning, Jason Gray, Town Castle Rock Mayor. I get the idea of handing something to somebody who's on the corner asking for something. But that's the whole idea about this, is discouraging people from being on the corners. And so if we're handing them a piece of paper, it says, get to wherever, I think it's just easier, for our residents and our citizens to go to this rather than hand anybody stuff. It's whether you're handing a $20 bill or you're handing a note or your business card, you're slowing up traffic, you're making it danger, it could be something that just encourages more people hanging out on corners. I think that what we're trying to do is just discourage that. We're trying to get people off the corners and get some help from them through these different foundations.
I would just add, I really wanted to thank the town of Castle Rock too. This is a project that their communications department spearheaded and led, and Castle Rock has really been a phenomenal partner on this. So thank you for your hard work on this. We really appreciate that. You know, I know the other piece too, and our communications director and PIO, Wendy Holmes, is here, but I know the communication strategy will also, you know, tell the story behind the signs. I live in Lone Tree and I have 3 kids, and I know that when we first started seeing people in medians with signs, you know, my daughter, who's now 16, literally would stop her car to get out and try to help. I don't really want my 16-year-old daughter to be stopping traffic or to be getting out of her car. So part of the issue is how do we do this safely? And one of the successes around the HEART team is we now have navigators that have the ability to provide services, engage directly with people that are in crisis so that we don't impede traffic, create safety issues, and hopefully do this in a positive way. It looks like we do have a raised hand in the audience. We were going to save public comment to the end. I believe we do. Okay, so sir, if you can hang on for your comment, we'll definitely open it up for public comment for sure. Is there anything else from the working group or executive committee on this?
Okay, so the next thing then on our agenda is an update from our HEART. I'm going to turn this over to, and that is our Homeless Engagement Assistance and Resource Team that is now in positioned. We have 2 of our 3 positions in place, and so I'm very excited to turn it over to Tiffany Marcito, our supervisor of the HEART team.
Can you hear me? Okay, thank you, Jen. And thank you, citizens. Just a couple of updates from us. We have been working on our training over the last 3 weeks. We've been working closely with our law enforcement partners. So thank you to Sheriff's Office, Castle Rock, and Lone Tree for working with us with safety radios and our bike trainings. We've been also working diligently trying to get our exams passed in the homeless management information system. So we will be able to enter in our clients that we contact or homeless individuals that we contact out in the community into the database so we can start referring them for services. We have also been continuing to reach out to our community partners, introducing ourselves, and trying to find ways that we can collaborate together to help this homeless population. And I will pass that over to Rand, and he's going to go over what our new form looks like so people can start referring people to our HEART program.
Thank you. I just want to show you really briefly, today we launched live to our partners in law enforcement, our referral form. This form is going to be available to our community partners, our nonprofits, our faith-based organizations that are oftentimes the first stop for folks who are experiencing homelessness, as a way for them to refer information to us about those who are experiencing homelessness in our community. So to that end, I think I could also probably do this one, Dan, maybe. That's yours, sorry. And so to that end, this form is now live, again, live for our law enforcement. It just asks some really simple information, including their name, if we understand, if we know when their date of birth is, their phone number, how to reach them, and then where they're at. The goal of this is to be able to provide information to our team about where folks are who are experiencing homelessness, so our HEART team can go out and reach out to them. And so just a really quick, brief, easy form. It's a webhook, so it could be saved as a URL on a browser. Any mobile device can tag it and send it out. Our team will get an email notifying us that there's a that there's a request to go out and follow up with somebody. And so this will be available again today to our law enforcement partners. Next week, we'll begin to roll that out to our partners. I see folks from Mana Connect and Help and Hope, Catholic Charities, our libraries, our school districts starting next week. And so that we'll be able to receive that information and begin to follow up. So excited for this forum to be able to come out as our next step of response and responding to folks in our community who need help and support. So with that, Jen, I'll turn it back to you, I think.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Brandon, when are we gonna roll this out to the community as well? So if citizens wanted to fill out a reform.
So we're working on addressing the best way for the citizens to get information to us. There's some concern around cybersecurity and the data information that's being passed, and so we're being mindful of that. That's the next step, and we're working with our IT department on what a process is for our citizens. The phone number that is available on our website and on our signs will go directly to the cell phone of the HEART team representative for that community. And right now, that's still the best way for our citizens to reach out, is just by phone. So if you're in Lone Tree, you'll press I think it's 6, 7, it's all in alphabetical order. That would forward to our HEART team member that's assigned to Lone Tree. You'll get their cell phone and either talk to them directly if they're available, or be able to leave a voicemail directly for that member. So we're excited about this opportunity to respond to questions and concerns from our community and to help folks.
Ray, do you mind saying the phone number out loud?
Yeah, so it is, oh geez, quiz 303. It's brand new. 660-7301 is the phone number. And that's now active. It's a good thing. So we're ready to take those phone calls. So 303-660-7301. And that will, that way you can reach, based on your community, one of our HEART team members. So we do not have the phone numbers available 24/7, but we will not have HEART teams working 24/7. That's why this form. So if it's after hours, you can fill this out and we can follow up the next time somebody is available.
And if I can just add to that, in addition to that, we are exploring a chat feature essentially that would be put on the douglasHasHeart.org website, so that we can have another way to communicate to the HEART team. So by doing that, that will connect you to them, and then they will be able to go out and address the situation. So, okay. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. If it is an emergency, always please call the police, not the HEART team.
Depending on the success of this programming, it already sounds like so much has been addressed in Douglas County as a result of the good work that you're already, I can't believe how much success you've already had in a couple of weeks, but to the extent we continue to see that positivity, I almost wonder if this group should have a discussion potentially with our sheriff's office around what that would look like to have a 24/7 HEART team. And if there was an opportunity to improve those services. So I don't know if there's get further comment. Maybe that's something we put a pin in for next time, but okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
I do want to point out, though, that it's important for our citizens to understand the one thing that the law enforcement is really asking for, where this number, one thing that law enforcement is really asking, where this number, where the citizens can call in 24/7 is going to be crucial. If the citizens see an encampment or where homeless are coming in and starting to set up our camp or have set up a camp, that's crucial information, because our goal is to locate those camps, get those camps cleaned up as fast as we can, because what we have learned is the faster we can clean up these camps, the faster we don't have returns. So that's where the citizens can really help us be in the eyes of the
Feedback. Okay, any other questions on this topic?
What's the ability to have a photo taken by that phone number? Text a photo of the encampment?
I think, well, that phone number will connect people directly to the HEART navigator that's assigned to that area. So I think they will be able to start responding during their regular business hours at this point. And then you'd be able to text them the picture.
To that number?
Right.
No.
No, they will have people will be contacted by the Heart Navigator and then they would be able to do that with their mobile device.
Yeah, the first question typically is, what do they look like? Where are they? And it's very difficult to get to the name or the level of the name and all that. It's just so much easier
Yeah.
to be taking a picture.
Right. This is a phone tree sort of situation, so there won't be any kind of ability to send a picture through that number that we gave. You'd have to wait for the follow-up with the navigator.
You know, and I apologize too. I'd like to welcome one of our newest members to the working group, Mark Druba, who comes to us from Lone Tree, has a formidable history there, is really almost a city founder. Mark, did you want to introduce yourself or? All right, well, we welcome a lot of good ideas here, so thank you for being with us.
It's interesting you brought up photographs, because I was thinking the same thing, because photographs are important. However, we just need to caution our citizens that you can't just jump out of your car and take a picture of somebody. It's gonna cause a lot of problems. When we're out in the field with them, when our heart team's out there with our officers, we always ask the homeless person, can we take your picture? Sometimes they say, yeah, most of the time they say yes, but sometimes they say no. We have to respect their rights on that. So we just gotta be cautioning our citizens not to just jump out of our cars and be snapping pictures or it can cause us a lot of problems.
You know, Chief Duffy, I wonder on that too. So from a legal, I don't know, is our county counsel here somewhere online or with us? But I always heard, and this is like me being a private practice attorney a while ago, but I don't know if this is still currently true, but I thought you didn't have a right to privacy for your image in a public space. So if somebody took a photo in a public area, would that be a problem?
I don't think it'd be a legal problem, Commissioner. However, it's the same thing. If you were standing in the public and some person you did not know just came up in front of you, stuck a cell phone in your face and snapped a picture, that's gonna cause some alert. That's gonna cause them to
See all the time.
You see what I'm getting at?
I get
And then, and we're dealing with a very vulnerable population who are very, very paranoid. So we just gotta be very careful with that. So that last thing we need is a confrontation in the street.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Any other comments, questions on this item? Okay. So I am gonna say, I know I've had a question for the heart number online. That number is 303-660-7301. And we will go ahead and put that in the chat as well. So our next item to discuss, we had a presentation by Mike Pokemus with The Rock last month on a faith-based initiative center and have had several conversations with county staff and others on this idea actually. And, you know, we wanted to bring this back up because we are open. What we wanted to say is that we're very much open to other alternatives, want to be able to discuss that with this group, but also want to have an opportunity to discuss that kind of scattered site approach or, you know, what another approach could look like along these lines. So.
So as Commissioner Layton said, can you guys hear me? In the very beginning of the meeting, we've been having the winter shelter network through our churches for a long time, probably 7 to 8 years. And what we want to consider is taking the winter part of the, utilizing our already good system that we have with the churches, maybe in a different way. And ultimately, there's been a lot of questions about what that would look like, what it could look like, the details of it all. So we come to the executive committee today to consider or to talk about hiring a facilitator for us to be able to talk about what that scope could be, get to some of the detail pieces of it, but to actually create a plan and therefore not have all of the speculation and some of the hyperbole around what we are trying to do or not trying to do. We want something concrete. So we come to this group today asking what the group thinks about hiring a facilitator in short order. That's one thing that Commissioner Layden has asked us, is that if we are able to hire a facilitator, that we do something within like 2 months. We work really hard. Whoever volunteers to be on that committee will have to come for several hours worth of work, and then we would submit the plan to the executive committee for obviously response, similar to what we've done with the sign committee. So I'll stop there and ask if what people think about it.
So I really appreciate that introduction. We had an opportunity to meet as the Douglas County Faith-Based Initiative. We actually do have a Douglas County Faith-Based Initiative. We really believe in our faith-based partners around this concept. And what we heard from our town hall and from a variety of conversations is work with the churches, work with the faith-based community. The Winter Shelter Network has had a lot of great success in this arena. As we talked in the faith-based initiative with the pastors and church leaders within our community, it was really the initial stages of what could this be? What would this look like? How do we move from the success of the Winter Shelter Network to something even more sustainable and positive in this arena? So the only ask of the faith-based initiative was, would you be interested in being at the table to help develop a plan? So I just want to be really clear, especially with our citizens here. No, this is very early. Nothing has been decided. It's really just a response to your comments to work with the faith-based community. And I think that's going to go well. We did hear from Aaron White and the Winter Shelter Network. And I think part of the concern from the faith-based community, which is valid, is we need to have some details, some parameters, more community engagement, some specificity around what this looks like. No church is going to be just told you have to do this. This is a choose your own adventure. I think the churches will decide what fits best within their own parameters. So I just wanted to tee that up in terms of just the conversation.
Any of the executive committees have any questions, thoughts about potentially hiring a facilitator? Rand was going to work with Dr. Reif to contact some of the facilitators that are already being used in this space across the Denver metro area and or around. So we might have 2 or 3 to choose from. Ultimately, if the executive committee agrees, this is something that we would like to start fairly quickly.
Can you explain to the group and to their citizens currently how many churches are in the Winter Shelter Network and who's kind of heading up or spearheading the facilitation right now?
Cannot answer that. I'm gonna turn it on. I can answer that for you, Chief Debbie. Right now, we have 8 churches that are part of the Winter Shelter Network as far as participating in hosting children from us. Not all of those churches would necessarily be able to transition to the type of model that is being discussed. But there are churches that would be interested in exploring what something different might look like. But because it's not been done before in our community, more of a plan and more structure would be needed before any of the churches would be willing to say, hey, this is something that we can do. And so as of right now, the churches of the Winter Shelter Network are pushing pause on the current season and on hosting and saying, hey, can we explore this further? Get some details ironed out about what something like this could look like, and then we'll go from there.
What is the current capacity of the winter shelter? What is the capacity of the winter shelter? Last winter, I guess.
So Winter Shelter Network typically runs from November 1st through March 31st each year. Last season, we served 5 households. 5. Our demographic was women and children experiencing homelessness who live residents of Douglas County. As we've seen over the last 6 months of this meeting, the demographic in most need in our community might not be that population. We're learning, along with this group, about the needs in our community. Our model was also that these women and children had to move to a different location each night of the week. And we had many families that honestly, that was too burdensome for them to do, and they chose not to stay with us. And so that model didn't fit their needs. And so just like this group is exploring alternatives, the Winter Shelter Network has been on a journey to explore different alternatives. We've talked about goals as a potential solution for families moving forward. So that's another reason that the Winter Shelter Network says right now, we're pushing pause on our current model and exploring Pastor Williams's idea and other alternative models to see how we can engage people experiencing homelessness in Douglas County. Pre-pandemic, yeah, a dozen or so to 18. So we never had a large population, and there was specific criteria for admission for families that we served. So not every family qualified to be able to come into the network.
Any other reflections, comments about hiring a facilitator?
Is anybody opposed to hiring a facilitator to help the faith-based community?
Just quickly show of hands and then we'll follow back up. Who would want to participate on that group from the executive committee? Great, thank you.
So I think the next item on our agenda is actually our public comment. We have some people signed up, I see. If you have not signed up on the sheet and you would like to sign up, I will circulate a sign up sheet, but we'll go ahead and get started with the people who have signed up.
Yeah, again, thank you so much for being here. I will reiterate, there were some rumblings about an affordable housing application with the town of Castle Rock. Again, this is not town of Castle Rock. I've been assured by our esteemed mayor who's here with us. They're doing a wonderful job, and Tim Dietz from town council, that they'll be pleased to continue to take your comments around Castle Rock applications. Nothing here has anything to do with an affordable housing application. So if those are your comments, I would ask you to take those to the town of Castle Rock. But if you do have comments related to our homeless initiative, we'll begin those now. I do have a sign-up sheet, and it looks like Eric Marsh was the first. Eric?
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Eric Marsh, and I'm a 15-year Castle Rock property owner and taxpayer. As taxpayers and society contributing citizens in Douglas County can fall on hard times and should be helped, keeping in mind that the Lord helps those who help themselves. I'm concerned about how you propose to not become a magnet for taxpayer residents for if you build it, they will come. We don't want Castle Rock to become Denver and their homeless camps issues, and we certainly don't want to be attracting homeless people to Castle Rock, and those certainly not to the Meadows where I live and many children play. All of the funding, is any of it available for the increased need for hiring and equipping first responders? As increased issues in crime will accompany this initiative. VA can staff their initiative, so how do we propose to staff this initiative? Local businesses can't find help to staff their restaurants. How do we propose staffing will be proposed or be able to do it with these initiatives? So I think these are some great concerns. I think we should be helping our residents. I don't want Castle Rock or Douglas County for that matter to become a magnet. I don't want people coming out of Denver. Homeless people that are homeless by choice don't want to be helped. People who fall on hard times should be helped. Who want to get back to a level of contributing to their own well-being, their own lives, and that of their, their neighbors and other citizens. Thank you.
And I just want to add that that second C of our homeless initiative is code enforcement. And we've been told pretty clearly by the legal department and our sheriff's office that we can't move people along unless there's a place for them to go. Reality is that they're here, we have 78, and, we want to reclaim our public spaces. So the shelter could be your park or your bridge or, in front of your house. If we can identify a place that it's sand in your gears, it's not your forever home, and really something that the faith-based community can address to your, I think, suggestion. Hopefully, we can work well together to identify that. Thank you, Mr. Bush. That's a great comment. Bob Laguerre.
Yes, I've observed over the last several meetings. It sounds like you've got various initiatives in place. I just wanted to observe that the metro area, based on what governments have done across the country, have made it very welcoming for homeless individuals who sometimes choose to be on the street. And they've discovered that Douglas County is a much better place to be on the street. People are more generous, more wealthy, and they're coming here whether you like that or not. And the reality is, as Commissioner Layden has said, the courts have ruled on what you can and cannot do with a homeless encampment. And one of them is that you have to have housing. And everything I've heard is that you've got programs for women and children. So that begs the question of, when you clean up these camps, as the chief has mentioned, what are you doing with your homeless individuals that you're moving on? So I just want to urge you to consider that you may not like that homeless folks are moving down to Douglas County, but you've now got a rail system that brings them here. It's a much better place to camp. There's more open space, more shade, and they're coming whether you like that or not. So the reality is you've got to come up with a way to provide temporary housing until you get them off the street or get them to willingly leave your county. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I think one thing we've heard often in this room is that our citizens are so phenomenal. They're very compassionate, they're wealthy, they're successful, and they're handing, $100 bills out of their SUVs at intersections out of the desire to be compassionate. And unfortunately, we know that that only increases the problem, doesn't decrease it. If you're getting $100 out of an SUV, you're going to come back. So I think part of the signage and the messaging is around encouraging people that handouts don't help and to really have the heart team engage directly. But that's a well-taken comment. Appreciate that. We've got Steve and Janet Endersby. Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, thank you for being here with us. Then we have Lori Belling. We're used to seeing you here.
So my question is, just giving an update on the locations that you're considering for shelter. The last couple of meetings, I've heard that, Castle Rock was not chosen, that it is a consideration and that you have 16 other locations, but I haven't in any of these meetings before what the other considerations are. Where are you trying to find the location?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think that's the key consideration is if we do, by the code enforcement, have to have a place for the homeless to go, where is that specific place? What we heard from you and many citizens was work with the faith-based community as you have for so many years. I think we heard 7 to 8 years in our winter shelter network. It's early in that planning stage, and I think it's up to the churches to determine what best makes sense. One of the comments that has been floated around is a little bit innovative and unique. It's this notion of foster families. We have large churches that have 8,000 person congregations. This tends to be the wealthiest county outside of Washington, D.C. And you have couples in 10,000, 20,000 square foot homes. They're empty nesters and they're part of church congregations and they might have 3, 4 extra bedrooms. Do they want to help a woman in crisis that is fleeing domestic violence? Maybe. So that's a concept that has been floated too, but I would just say the faith-based initiative is trying to work on that for your direction, and I think it's pretty early in the planning.
And I don't think people have a problem with the women and children. I think, they're a different type of issue. I think it's more, the people that are on fentanyl and they're delusional. We don't know what they're thinking when they look at us. Or do they see a fire-breathing dragon that they think they need to slay?
Yeah.
So that's the part that's scary that we're afraid to have in our neighborhoods. I don't think anybody here is heartless and, doesn't want to help those that want to help. But I also think we need to protect our town and our family from drawing those people and including the drug dealers. And, we want to keep our kids safe. And so I'm just, if we're going to be a draw, it just seems like when I first started attending these meetings, the thought was, let's put the shelter and concentrate all of the homeless people from Douglas County into this one shelter. And I just think that anytime you try and do that, they're going to have a problem bringing, like I said, people that are drug addicts and alcoholics, sure, help women and children. I'll be the first one to volunteer to help them, but I'll also be the first one, as you probably know, to put the word out and do what I can to make sure Castle Rock doesn't become the magnet for all of Douglas County, to bring on all those drug addicts and alcoholics and all of that to our team.
Absolutely. That is so well said. And Commissioner Thomas, I think is Commissioner Thomas still here? Oh, shit. Well, so, the commissioners sit on about 15 boards apiece, and we touch on a couple of different areas. One area that I've been involved with is the state opioid settlement. And so we were able to successfully have Douglas County be its own region for the opioid crisis. So those that are facing narcotic abuse and, trying to get, healed from opioid abuse, our county will be able to address those individuals in a very specific way. And we have an expert-driven panel that will be hopefully helping to deal with that. We also have a really successful Douglas County mental health initiative, which we just heard this last week. Because of the co-responder teams in our community, we've been able to move the law enforcement engagement and our hospital engagement to almost zero. So those co-responder teams with the Care Compact have really been dealing with people in the mental health space in a positive way. I mean, almost to zero. I hope we can do that here, get to that functional zero. But one thing we did hear from Children's Hospital leadership is that, if they could wave a magic wand, the one thing that they would ask for is outpatient therapeutic for youth. So if you have a young person with suicidal ideation at 4 a.m, there's no place in the county for a parent to take that child. So we're working on that issue too. We know that a lot of the facilities were closed in the 60s because of inhumane abuses of people with mental health issues, but we need to revisit that in a humane way. So just know that the county is looking at that outside of this room, but in conjunction with our partners here. That's a really good comment.
I appreciate your time. Back to the question of the under considerations outside of the faith-based treatment.
Yeah.
Is there other considerations for a shelter?
Yeah, so I think what, and I'll let Mike Bohema speak to this a little bit because this is his brainchild, but part of it is not hitting pause on the Winter Shelter Network, although I appreciate that. I get maybe the concern and wanting to hear a little bit more, but is allowing the faith-based partners to say, okay, we are already serving people in crisis. Can we do just one? One location, one shelter at our church where we can serve folks. But your question is valid, which is, okay, yes, women and children, but what about people that have really significant criminal backgrounds, mental health issues? And that's to be determined. I think that is an ongoing conversation we need to have. So
At this time, you have no locations on the table?
For people experiencing, no.
Or like the ones that are not women or children? Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. So we have a James Schultz. James Schultz.
I'm lived in Castle Rock for 20 plus years. One of the business owners that was directly affected by the killing. So our team has obviously gone through quite a bit to get through to the other side of that. But I think in the process of that, we've learned a lot about a couple of different problems, right? And I didn't really even realize that this meeting was going on until after we dug in, after what had happened. And so this was the first one I've been able to attend to maybe ask a couple of questions and then also just share some of my learnings after spending time with the local police. And, our business is you know, behind our business, there's a lot of trees, and whoever spoke about the shade, whole bunch of shade back there. And I think that, you know, we've partnered with other business owners to say that, you know, it's time to lift up the trees and cut some of that back, and we're making some progress on not having around our business that happen. But I think that in general, the two questions that I have, one is about how are we getting the message out that business owners have the capacity, especially in Castle Rock, to sign a form that allows the police to do something. And I think prior to that, not knowing that, we had not signed that form. Our landlord did not sign that form. And so I think one of the things about what do we do during the day or at night or whatever time, and we've added security and different things just based on, you know, I think the problem's growing. We didn't realize how bad it was until you had it, you know, literally in your back door. So how do we get that message out to business owners to sign the form at Castle Rock? I understand that Douglas County is a little bit different, that they just act, right? And so one of the things that we've done is part of the landowner behind us, and he has signed forms, made statements to Douglas County Police that he would not like encampments on his property. And so we actually were able to, there was a larger one growing before the incident happened, and then there was a small one that grew, and we were able to just nip that to the point of the gentleman, I'm afraid I don't understand, but he mentioned that, you know, if we take care of that quickly, that we have better success. And from a business owner's point of view, we have to be able to push that away from where people want to spend their money, do their things in Castle Rock, feel safe with their kids at, you know, and we have a sports store 4 doors down from us, right? That people take kids to all the time, right? And that's even dark, by the way, in Castle Rock. So, you know, I think that we have to find a way to communicate that message better. And I'd love to be part of anything that you guys are working on to do that. I just volunteer myself to say, how in Castle Rock can I participate in the faith-based stuff and the hard stuff? Because I think because I've lived here over 20 years, it really, you know, not only affected our company and our community of company and the people that work with Josh, but it affected just us and the family in general and all the families around us, the neighborhoods, at our church, you name the situation, right? So also with the faith-based thing, I think you're on the right track to pause and get some people involved that want to help, that might be able to organize properly something like that. When I hear 5 people were helped, that says that's a big number, even though it's small. And I hope you realize how big that number is, even though it's small. And I think we've got a lot of work to do together to make something like that viable. And also to the first gentleman's point, you know, we're not trying to be a magnet, but let's get people the right resources, and business owners have to help with that, right? And the first step is calling the police, having them removed for trespassing, and let's get that rolling, right? And then secondly, I would just ask that where can I go to be educated about where the plan is? You know, I love your initial comment, right? From 78 to 0 is the goal. And if that's the goal, then what's the plan? And I'd love to understand, like, when I go in front of my board or participate in my board meetings, I have to go with a very intense, articulate plan. And I don't know where I can find that plan, but one, I'd love to know that. And secondly, what city or county are we modeling after that's been able to make that big of an impact? Because if you watch the news and you read articles, well, let's take Seattle as an example, they've done a terrible job. And we do not want to do and repeat those types of things. We want to do the best of the best for our own country, I think. And so where are those places? What can we model? Where can I be educated to find that and partner with this group to do that? Because we have a big change to prevent in Castle Rock and Lone Tree, Douglas County, all of it is not just a city issue. But we have to get way ahead of it and be a little bit more quick to act on the things that will make a difference. And I know that I just said, I'll let you respond and then switch to the questions about how we get the message out and
Yeah, James, I can't thank you enough for being here, and our hearts go out to you and the Perry's Pizza family for what you experienced. You know, to Lori's question earlier about where is the shelter for people that may have a criminal background or mental illness, we know one place was the Perry's Pizza. You know, we know it's our alleyways, it's our business corridors. So if we don't get ahead of this, they will find a place, and it won't be a place that we desire. I know we have our law enforcement here. We've got Captain Darren Weekly and Chief Duffy and Commander Beals that may want to talk more about what you can do from a law enforcement standpoint as a private business. But to answer your question about the plan, if you just Google Douglas County Homeless Initiative, everything we're doing here is right there. All of our meetings are recorded in public. And I just would love to personally invite you to participate with us in this entire process. We really appreciate your input.
And I'd be happy to do that, because I think there's a lot to be done. I can oversee this experience.
I hope you'll be here.
So,
let me
thank you very much. And by the way, local police have been great. David Moorhead, who was part of, I think, the initiative to help people on the street, he spent 2 hours with me, walking me through the issue of buying a business through the city. He really spent time. The smartest had to get more involved and actually say something, do something. Thank you.
I just want to touch on what you said, because what you just said is one of the key things that we've been focusing on. And that is with our business owners, understanding that they're part of the solution and the collaboration that we're working on. 4 months ago, before we began the HARP program, we had such a struggle with business owners because oftentimes we had a person there, a homeless individual, a business or something of that nature. We go there and they were very hesitant to say, we want this person removed, they're trespassing. We've asked them to leave, they won't leave. Can you get this person to leave? And the officers explained to them that, well, technically they're trespassing. Do you want them charged with trespassing? And we heard so many times from the business owners, I can't do that because I don't have the authority to do that, or I didn't know I could do that. So we moved them on. But I will say, every month I write a report, and in the last 2 months since we began the HARP program, we've seen a huge education to our business owners of what their rights are when it comes to homelessness, how they can put together what we call a trespass letter, to where we put a record in file that this person's been warned. You come back here again, you are going to get charged with trespassing. Homeless understand that, and it's really starting to work where they understand that they can't just keep coming back to this business. So what you said is so right on about the partnership that we're trying to build with our businesses. And I will say that our HART team is going out every day, talking to the businesses. We have a long ways to go, but I wrote it down here, and this is something we're gonna bring back to the HART team. We're gonna talk about how do we get this out more to our businesses, what they can and can't do, what we can and can't do, but we can do this together if we work together. So you brought up some great points, collaboration that we're trying to get with our communities, not just within unincorporated Douglas County, but all 4 of our 3 municipalities and unincorporated Douglas County are working together very, very well. So thank you very much for that. And Commander Bills and I were both shaking our heads. We're like, we like him. So thank you very much.
He asked 2 other questions that weren't addressed. He asked, what's the plan? You sent him to the website, but is there a plan laid out on the website?
Yeah, and we're still in planning about a lot of these issues, so you're right here.
He asked, what are we modeling it after?
Yeah, well, let me just be really clear. We will never be Seattle or Portland or San Francisco.
But what are we modeling after?
Not that. So, and part of what we're doing is we are having experts that have done a good job in other areas that tend to have some success. We've been in touch with Major Jack Briggs, a retired major, who is a pastor. He runs the Colorado Springs Rescue Mission, and they have a very different approach that's working well in the Springs to ensure that people are transitioning out back to self-sufficiency. But you know, the reality is that Douglas County oftentimes has to be tip of the spear and has to lead. So this may be something you haven't seen before, but I welcome you to continue to be part of the planning because it's all beginning right now. Captain Weekly, did you have a comment?
Captain Derwick, the County Sheriff's Office. I agree with a lot of things that were said today. Obviously, we have a HART navigation team. We need to do a better job of relaying that message to the citizens so they know, regardless of where they're at in Douglas County, that these services are available for people to call to connect these folks with those services. But to this other gentleman's point, a lot of people don't want services. They like their lifestyle. They're drug addicts, alcoholics, many have a criminal background, severe mental health issues. But the one component that we need to work on, and I get it, if nobody wants one near their home or their business, is law enforcement have an enforcement mechanism. We have to work out a place to put them. And that is not a problem that's easily solved. But I'm telling you that there's men and women out there every single day with a gun and a badge that want to be able to enforce the law, but they're unable to do it. We have to have that component. We're all very compassionate people. People get into law enforcement because they do want to help people. But in order for us to have that enforcement mechanism, and we don't have a violation of criminal law, we have to have somewhere to put them. Otherwise, we're going to be writing a very large check with your money because we're going to get sued and we're going to lose. We don't want that to happen. So while it's not a problem that's easily solved, we need to work towards it. Now, the faith-based community, I fully agree that that's hopefully a viable option. But as soon as you start adding males to the equation, that creates a whole nother circumstance that we don't want. We don't want, women and children victimized. So that's a problem that's not easily solved at all. So while I agree with a lot of things that were said, we do need to think bigger picture and further down the road on how to solve it.
Excuse me, question on that. So what's the definition of that? Is it city limits? Is it county limits? Where does this place have to be in order to enforce the law?
It can be anywhere that we can take them in within Douglas County.
Within Douglas County, anywhere in Douglas County.
Correct.
That's a really good question too, because
We have to stand up to the reality that we have to identify that quickly, and the transient can be moved anywhere, right? That's been done on our property. So at the end of the day, we do have to identify homeless and transient. And the transient are more of the people that we're talking about with addiction, background, and crime. And I know that for a fact.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly, but the issue is if they're trespassing on your private property, then we have a mechanism to do something. If they're on public property, we don't right now. So I would encourage business owners, whoever, to call your local law enforcement agency. Yes, I would start with a HART team if it's during business hours. But the fact of the matter is, you can call 911 if it's an emergency. If it's not an emergency, just call the non-emergency line. We're available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you're driving your car and you see something that doesn't look right, call.
Yeah, I just want to address the gentleman's comment. That's a really good one. I'm sorry the audio was a little bit rough at the beginning, but one of the things we heard is that the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative has plans in place, sounds like $55 million potentially for a campus somewhere else. So I don't know what that is going to look like, but that could potentially be at least one location where we're addressing some of these needs in addition to Douglas County, but that's a good question. I know we have a number of online comments. I don't want to ignore the folks that are online. Who would like to comment from online?
Thank you, Commissioner. The first online comment is from Gerald Anderson. Gerald, you are unmuted.
Hi. I guess one of the main concerns I see for long-term housing needs is how we address transportation for such people. In other words, in the areas of availing veterans with VA resources, substance abuse treatment, mental health support, job counseling, eventually, hopefully, getting jobs. And even those who get jobs, how do they get there? If the location does not avail itself to public transportation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Anderson. I know transportation is a whole other ball of wax that we need to work on. The navigators have been equipped with 3 vehicles as of now. I know they're still in process in terms of finalizing that. And then the Board of County Commissioners did approve a vehicle with the criminal reintegration officer at the Justice Center so that people that are justice involved that leave, they don't end up in a park in Castle Rock or under a bridge. They can actually be transported if they make that request voluntarily to a location of their choice. Is there additional online comment?
Yes, Commissioner. The next online comment is from Megan McGinnis. You are unmuted, Megan.
Hi, Megan, can you hear us?
Seems we're having some difficulty with Megan. I will get back to her. We do have more public comment. This one was from Teresa Yates. She does not have microphone capability, and she would like to know what would happen with someone who refuses to go to a shelter.
Yes, I'll turn that back over to law enforcement. We would call those service resistant. I know Darren and Chief, you would like to take that.
We run into. That's a very good question because we run into this all the time. Where our navigators, our officers will, obviously, we don't have any place here in Douglas County. Close to 95% of the homeless are coming out from Douglas County. Most of them are from the Denver metro area, the actual city of Denver. And we've made arrangements, you know, we can get them into a shelter up there if they're willing to go. But if they're not willing to go, we still have to follow the Constitution and the rights of the individual. Can't force them into a car. They haven't done anything illegal. And we said it here 100 times, but being homeless is not a crime. Being homeless is not illegal. So if they choose not to go to a shelter, and I'm talking about just a homeless person we have in contact with, then we can't force them into our car and take them to a shelter. We offer it to them. Most of the times they're pretty open to it. They may not want the ride from our navigators, but they'll take the courtesy ride to the nearest light rail, go back up into the city. But it's a problem that we have to do, but we always have to respect an individual's rights. These people do have the same rights as you and I.
Chief Duffy, thank you for that. Let me just ask a follow-up for probably a lot of citizens that have this question too. If an individual is service resistant but committing a crime, such as, vandalism, urinating, defecating in front of a business, they've got a baby in a median, maybe it's a dependency and neglect issue, what does that look like?
If they're committing a crime and we've got probable cause to believe that a crime is being committed, yeah, we're gonna take enforcement, and we do. We've said it before, we can't arrest our way out of this. The county jails are not designed, never were designed to become the next homeless shelter. That happened in the 90s with our mental health, where the county jails became the mental health institutions across the country. There seems to be a push for the same type of, well, let's do the same with the homeless, let's just put them in jail. That's not what county jails are designed for. But if a crime is being committed, such as public urination, vandalism, trespass, or criminal mischief, stuff like that, we will absolutely take enforcement. Now, sadly, a lot of the homeless we come across, I'd say probably 7 out of the 10 that we come across have a warrant already in the system for crimes that they've committed in other jurisdictions. And then we call the home agency where that warrant is from, and the warrant is either only good within the city limits or where the jurisdiction where the warrant is from, oftentimes it's Denver. So we can't arrest them for a Denver warrant. Because they can only be arrested if they're in the city limits of Denver. Or we run into where we call up the home agency, say we've got this person, it's a warrant, most of the warrants are failure to appear. And they won't confirm their warrant. We can't arrest them unless the home agency confirms that that warrant is still active. So we run into that all the time. So if they commit a crime here in Douglas County, 100% we take action.
Thank you, Chief Duffy. Let me go back to online comment. Is there any additional online comment?
Yes, we're gonna try Megan McGinnis again. Megan, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, hi, Megan.
Excellent. Thank you for allowing me the chance to speak. And first of all, I would like to thank law enforcement for the work that you're doing and the difficulty in which you're doing it. Sometimes you don't get the community support, so thank you very much. I would like to address our approach. I feel we're being very compassionate and light-footed, if you will. Our signs are, kind of directed towards the residents, the community. I mean, I certainly don't have $100 to hand out on the corner, and it's extremely dangerous to do that exchange. How will these signs distract or deter the panhandlers from doing this? It sounds like the signs are directed towards the community and not doing that. And then the other question is, how do we address folks on opioids who do not want help? And I understand law enforcement, you can't do anything unless they urinate or do something. But there's a large community of homeless people who want to be there and have this addiction and don't want any help. And they're the ones that I'm afraid will cause the crime eventually. They may not be doing anything now, but even with regards to the Perry's incident, we need to stop it or prevent it ahead of time before it gets to that extreme. So those are my two questions about the signs, deterring the panhandling, and how are we addressing folks that have the issues before it gets too bad. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. I'll turn the second piece over to law enforcement, but the first is, we recognize the First Amendment right of individuals to make a request. I mean, panhandling in and of itself is not illegal, but we know if we dry up that resource and that compassionate citizens aren't handing a lot of money out of a car window, then there won't be money to get at intersections. The point is to try to redirect that generosity towards our community foundation, which is a sort of the Red Cross of Douglas County. I don't know if did law enforcement have anything additional on the second piece?
Well, as far as the panhandling component, the commissioner is correct. Many years ago, panhandling used to be on the books, used to be illegal. That has been repealed. However, if you see somebody going out into traffic or obstructing traffic, that's something that law enforcement can handle or deal with. Now, in terms of drugs, if our law enforcement officers come in contact with these folks and we can establish probable cause to show that they've got drugs on them, they can send to a search or something like that, then we can also take enforcement action. But also to the commissioner's point, these folks have the same rights as you and me. We can't arrest them for a crime they didn't commit yet. We can't take enforcement action on something that they have not done yet. So it's difficult, but our deputies and police officers that are out there on the street, this is what they do. And if they come in contact with somebody who's committing a crime, has drugs on them, they can do an investigation, and depending on the results of that investigation, they can take enforcement action.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're about 15 minutes over. I know the executive committee working group, I want to respect your time, but I also want to respect the public that are here. There was a gentleman in the white that I just want to make sure we got back to you. Did you still have a question or comment, sir? Sure, please.
David Anderson. Came here this morning mostly for the walk, but mostly to listen and learn, which is sometimes a short. But I think that what you guys are doing is a good start. I think that we need more and probably smaller so that we can all become more educated, and with that education, with more understanding. 30+ year resident in Colorado now, 20 years in Denver, and 12 years in Castle Pines. So we're in the middle of Lone Tree, in the middle of Castle Rock. Enjoy both Lone Tree and Castle Rock. I think that your sign is excellent. So if you look at economics, supply and demand, plenty of demand for the money. If we drive the supply, like you just said, it's difficult to get agreement between two people. I'm just not anything in there. So the fact that whoever's from Lone Tree, totally understandable that it's not a perfect sign, but there's no perfection in it. So let's start somewhere. Let's start with this sign. When we pull off the exit to go to Meadows, there's almost always panhandlers there. We explain to our children what they are, who they are, maybe how they got there, all of the different circumstances that maybe surrounded that person. So to explain a sign that may not be the perfect sign, just another thing that unfortunately we have to explain to our kids these days that we would rather not. So wasn't expecting to make comments today, but just to encapsulate a little bit of what my wife brought this to my attention. She's on Nextdoor occasionally, which unfortunately there's a lot of misunderstanding on Nextdoor. And it's brought about, I think, by the lack of people just becoming more aware of what's going on. So this was an eye-opener for me today, a good one. Both from, my dad was a California highway patrolman. So from a law enforcement perspective, it's super interesting to hear kind of how you guys are hamstrung by what you can and can't do, right? So my mom was always volunteering for Catholic Social Services. So from the faith base, totally get it. Like we grew up with that, right? However, if I own a home by the rock, I want to make sure that what is in Denver, Seattle, Portland, DC, what we see all over the country isn't going to be in my backyard. So I really came today to support the Castle Rock homeowners who might have that in their backyard and it's ugly. So I can say that living in Denver, places that I used to go to, including 16th Street Mall, we don't go to as a family. It's unfortunate. We just sold a house that was on Wash Park because I did not want what was prime real estate to become a campground for the homeless. And I didn't want my property values to be affected, so we sold our house. Fortunately, that was a good deal for us. But if I didn't have a place to go, that was a second home, so that was fortunate. But if I were the primary homeowner and that happens in Wash Park, that's ugly. So we don't want or need that here. We do need solutions. Let's start meeting more often. Let's come up with solutions and let's just get it done. It's got to be one step at a time. Nothing's going to be perfect, but we need to apparently have a facility that can house people so we can get them off the streets. That's kind of what I got out of this meeting.
Mr. Anderson, thank you for your comments. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. Dave, real quick, I just want to say, and I think just to clarify some things, everything you guys are saying, we are 100% in agreement with you. I'm at 100% in agreement with you. And we do not want to see, we actually don't want to see any kind of compounds or centers created in Castle Rock and Douglas County at all. I think to clarify just for a second here on this, what we're looking to try to do is actually involve what we've done with the Winter Shelter Network is turn this into the network. And so that we wouldn't have a number of units on our facility. We want to have we'd like to have one where we can bring in one person and help them. But then if we can have 20 other churches in the community in Douglas County and they each take one, now we don't have a homeless community in a sense. And so what we've realized is the major need is not shelter, it's relationship. And if we can solve the relationship issue, we can solve the shelter issue. And so I think there was a misunderstanding that the Rock is going to have a homeless community there. We absolutely are not, and we do not want to have that. That's the last thing we want to do because that creates the problem and that brings people in. But if we can have one, I think we can get them back on their feet. And if another church over here can have one, they can get them back on their feet. And so this is the network. This is how we collaborate together. And I was telling Commissioner Layton, we do such an amazing job in Douglas County with the Winter Shelter Network. We have this initiative. We have the mental health initiative. All these things that we're doing, it's a collaborative effort of the faith-based community working with everyone else together to solve problems in our community. And I think some people were asking, well, what are we using? What template are we using from what other city or town? And I don't think we can do that. I think what we're doing a great job of is looking at what everyone else is doing and then taking the best of everything, putting it together and doing something unique that's never been done before. And we're seeing that it's actually better than just trying to grab something someone else has done and stick it here. So I think we're on a great path. And I hope that like it's gonna require the community to come together. It's gonna require all the cities and the county to come together. And I think we can do something that has never been done before and solve something that really has not, I don't feel like has been solved before. And I know we use the worst case like Seattle and some of these other places. There's some places that are doing it well, but I think we can do it even better. So.
So just out of respect for time, we got about 6 minutes until 11. We'll go till about 11. Maybe if we can do 2 more in the room and 1 more online. I just want to reiterate, so our next meeting is October 13th. It will be in this same room and you're all invited to come back. But let's take 2 more comments from the room. I've got a David Watson. David still here? I see a gentleman in the front that would like to speak. Yes, sir.
I was signed up.
Okay, I know, we have a lot of folks. You signed up too? Sir, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that handout sign is a great idea, but with all this money that we have, I think we should go a little bit further than that. I think we should take this money and do some type of ad on TV, social services, internet, to get the word out, to tell people, do not give money to panhandlers. And if you want to help, like you said, we have other programs here where they give their money. I think we need to do that because just a sign, I don't think people are going to see it driving by 20, 30 miles an hour. I can see what's going on. So I think we need to do that. Secondly, I think that there's a fine line between compassion and enabling. That's what we're worried about here, okay? All this money is being poured in. Denver has the same problem. They have money poured into it, yet from 2020 to today, there's an increase of 13% in the homelessness, okay? So we want to be compassionate. There's a lot of women, children, or, lost jobs or whatever, but the transit people, the people that stand on the corner who, take drugs or whatever. I own property in Denver, and one of my major problems I have is dealing with the homelessness. I have to go pick up the broken bottles, the drugs, the couches they have. I have to deal with that. I'm in the trenches. I have to deal with that. And I can call the cops every day and there's nothing going to be done about it, okay? So instead of saying that we can't, the panhandle, the laws, and the homeless, and we have to take them somewhere, how about we try to change the laws about panhandling? Change the laws about urban camping, okay? Not just give it up. And the one gentleman says, well, the homeless is going to come to council, whether you like it or not. No, we don't like it. We don't want to have this homeless come down here. We don't want urban camping. And you mentioned something about, well, we're not going to be Seattle. Can you guarantee that? Can everybody, any of you leaders here, guarantee that we're not going to be Seattle? And that's what we want to hear.
I can guarantee that. And you can hold me to that. Here to be your accountable elected official, hold me to that. And let me just say, I agree with you 100%. That signage, there is a communications marketing campaign associated with that will tell the story behind the sign. So you're exactly right. That will be TV, print, all those traditional platforms, as well as some of the new platforms. So more to come. But because and I'll tell you how I can guarantee that in Douglas County, we don't defund the police, we fund the police. We partner with law enforcement and we partner with our citizens, and we're here to listen. Because we partner with the faith-based community and law enforcement, and all of the people here at the table, that's why we'll be successful, and you can hold me to that. Let's do 1 more in the room, and I'm gonna do 1 more online. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Stacy Rogers and I live in Castle Rock, then only about a mile from Rock Church. People need to remember that people without homes are people. They are homeless for a variety of reasons that I would not even begin to have the nerve to assume. You deserve the same respect and compassion as anyone else, and it really hurts to hear people dehumanize these people. Sorry about your property taxes or anything, but you know what? They're people too. They buy things. Castle Rock is funded primarily by sales tax. So they pay sales tax, they pay taxes too. I do want to thank you. Sorry, I'm a little emotional there, but it's just sad. I support the signs. I can see you're in a bad position as far as how to handle this. I really like that you have put other resources that people who are generous and want to do this have these other opportunities. I do want to say from a Castle Rock specifically perspective, I had a young man living on my deck for a couple of weeks. So I'm housed. Call it. Contacted the police officer in the Castle Rock Police Department regarding the homeless initiative, and he never called me back. Resources, very disappointing. I was going to contact Chief Pauly about that, but we have our mayor and we have a councilman here, so there's no vacation there. Has Habitat for Humanity been contacted for assistance in whatever type of opportunities they have? I do want to say this is my first meeting coming to this, and I so appreciate the variety of resources. I mean, this is, you guys, the amount I would never begin to know. Most of us would never begin to know all of the details that go into that. And to that point, I thank you.
Ms. Rogers, thank you for that. And that is why in our 4Cs, we lead with compassion. I know our citizens are, have very strong opinions and I respect those, but we also have hearts and a desire to do the right thing. I know that to be true. Thank you for that. Let's go to one last online comment.
Thank you, Commissioner. Rebecca McDermott, you are unmuted.
Thank you so much. I am a Castle Rock resident and actually lived in Lone Tree for 15 years and came down here 8 years ago. And I also was involved with Urban Peak in Denver. I also officed in Denver and saw it was great in 05, 06, 07, and then it has gone downhill with homelessness. So I feel like what has happened here is because of the American Rescue Act funds, I feel like this has kind of been fun related and driven to get this done now. And the applications that have already been submitted, I know there's a deadline, but I feel like we should have been talking about this and have community involvement early in the year, knowing there was a deadline at the end of September. And I just feel like I am supportive of helping all the homelessness and all the homeless people, but you have to have a comprehensive plan. And the plan has to address addiction, drugs, alcohol, single mothers with children, families that come upon hard times. And I just feel like there is a lot of comments out there and people have a lot of compassion. And I feel, this meeting, I own my own business. I've taken 2 hours and I'm 2.5 hours for this meeting at home. And it's during the week, during the day, people can't attend. So I would say that maybe you switch it where there's a meeting like this during the day, and then maybe the next month it's in the evening, and maybe the next month it's during the day, so that you really truly get to voices of Highlands Ranch, Parker, Castle Pines, the whole region, so that we all can feel like we have a part of this comprehensive plan. Because I just am afraid that it's all being driven by these applications and these monies. Because what happens when there's no longer an American Rescue Act fund? Then what do we do? Like, we should be saying, well, once funding's not available, how do we continue to support the HEART program and all of this? So I appreciate you listening, and I'd appreciate any feedback.
Ms. McDermott, thank you so much for that. We'll continue to have open and public work sessions. We've had over 70 live town halls in the last year and a half. We'll continue to do that. But thank you so much. We're a little bit past 11 o'clock. I just want to thank all of the citizens that have joined us today, our executive committee, our working group. If you signed up and you still have a comment, our staff has indicated they're willing to hang out for a little bit. Please come up and share your comments and thoughts with us. They will be captured. And then I'd love to invite you to our next meeting of the Homeless Initiative, which is October 13th. 9 a.m. in this same room. Thank you again so much for joining us, everybody. Thank you.